describe that a little better for me. I feel like we seriously have the Justice League of Pranic pioneers as our speakers. Could you maybe introduce some of these beyond amazing people?
Let me start with Jazz Moheen. Jazz Moheen is the beautiful master and human pioneer from Australia. She became famous back in the 90s when she started sharing openly her own personal journey of getting a divine guidance to go through a 21-day initiation process for herself. And as I understand, at the end of her doing this 21-day of fasting and prayer, this initiation put her in such a state that she felt so aligned in her body, mind, emotions, and spirit that all her hungers disappear. So the world has made her famous as like the grandmother of Western breatharianism. But if you start to explore her teachings, she shares so much more, and the eating, non-eating is one tiny aspect of what she explores with people. But really it's just this being in the flow of divine grace and appreciating and enjoying the many, many beautiful side effects of that state. She's radiates this really beautiful divine love that I'm just so excited for all of us to be in her presence.
Can't wait to meet her.
And she's a true pioneer in that she started sharing these truths when the world really wasn't ready for it. And she lived through some really, what if it were me, would be really uncomfortable, judgments and misunderstandings about what she's really trying to share. So I just feel so honored that she's still here on the planet with us and still accompanying us after all of these years, so patiently letting the world catch up to this state in which we're now so much more open to these possibilities that she's been sharing for decades. And as I mentioned before, through the Supreme Master Ching Hai website, I also met Tom. I just fell in love with his interviews, and they were extremely inspirational. Tom comes from Ohio, USA, and his really amazing gift to the world is that he's able to share this profound wisdom for the ordinary working person. He came to these truths really on his own without a lot of support system. He read Jazz Moheen's book about the 21-day process, and he put himself through the process while working a busy job and having children and having household responsibilities and not having the funds to go, check out of life and go away to Thailand for a fancy retreat. He did it. He made life his meditation retreat, and he created this experience for himself that is, really takes a lot of profound inner strength to stand up to the disagreements and maybe even sometimes ridicule of friends and family who aren't open to these possibilities. But he held his truth, and now he's a beautiful teacher and a master who shares powerful insights for holding this new state of consciousness amidst even the difficulties of friends and family and a life situation that isn't always 100% supportive of it.
You can transcend those limitations in some ways.
Yeah, so I'm really, really inspired that he represents that for us. And he has an amazing sense of humor and just awesome to talk to, His smile, I'm just so excited to finally meet him in person. So far I've only met him on Skype, but I can't wait to see him in person and hug him and just thank him for the inspiration that he's given me. And then we've got Oberon from Brazil, who was also featured in the Supreme Master Ching Hai shows, and he's a yogi and a vegan activist in Brazil, which is, as I understand, a country where people's experience of the culinary arts is very heavy with animal products.
Very much so.
So it takes quite a lot of courage for him to stand up and to be a vegan activist in that country. And he's also him and his family, they have all been through the 21-day process, and they have a house in which they host beings from all over the planet who feel called to do the 21-day process. They will support and guide them. So he's guided something like over 1,000 people in the 21-day process.
He was directly inspired from Jasmine Heat.
Yes, right. So
get him in the same place. Awesome.
Yeah, he's this is quite amazing. Oberum's mother did the 21-day process first, and then they were so inspired by the beautiful rebirth that she put herself through, how radiant and how happy and how magnetic her light was, to that everybody else in their family wanted to do it. So Oberum did the 21-day process, I think, when he was only 17.
Wow.
Yeah. Akai and Camilla,
yes.
you know, my dear,
awesome
dear friends. They're a couple that I first also discovered on Supreme Master Qinghai television, and now they've become very close friends, and our children all play together, and they, at least for now, they're living in Northern California again. So I'm really grateful to be able to just have them as dear soul family and friends. Going through Akai's 8-day process back in early 2012 really was one of the top 3 most profoundly life-changing experiences in my life. I really feel that doing that 8-day process with him cleared out a lot of the major blocks that I had in this lifetime for really experiencing the fullness of my life and really coming into alignment with what I came here to do as a human being. And just letting go of all the things that used to make me irritated and grumpy. You know, I'm just permanently in such a good mood, largely because of the 8-day process.
Well, I'm sold. What about Camilla?
Camilla she shares something that on the surface is maybe has some similarities with what Akai shares, but actually in many ways is very different. It's from the same consciousness, but she works specifically with the womb, and she calls this area the creative vortex, and she's developed a powerful set of tools for men and women alike to get in touch with the information that they hold in their reproductive systems, in what she calls the creative vortex. In the Chinese tradition, we call this area the lower dantian in our abdomen, where we maybe hold a lot of information that might block our creative capacity, and how through conscious breathing and imagery practices, womb yoga practice, we can consciously reprogram this information and maybe even change the genetics that we hold, so we pass on a purer version of the genetics to the next generation. But it's not only about giving birth, conception, fertility, and so on. It's also about our capacity to give birth to anything in life, give birth to businesses, projects, artistic creations, having a pure, clean, and harmonious energy flow, and purifying the information that we carry in this area of our being really makes a big difference in how we manifest real physical things in this physical dimension, whether it be giving birth to healthy and awakened children, or giving birth to a healthy and awakened business, or making music or art that is the purest version of that inspiration that is flowing through us, without the distortions of uncomfortable memories and programmings that maybe we aren't totally conscious of, that we've gotten, inherited from our lineages. So I'm excited for her to share her latest body of work, because she's developing. She's been working a lot with women, men and women alike, but mostly women who are dealing with fertility issues, and she's developed some really profound insights around that issue. Who else? Wim Hof is another amazing guest. Wim Hof is the 26 times Guinness World Record holder, a real deal awesome yogi from Holland. And he discovered that through the power of breathing practices and gradual acclimatization to cold temperatures, that it's not just him, but every single human being has untapped potential for how powerful their bodies can heal from diseases, but also withstand extreme climate and conditions. And on the surface it seems like his teaching is about breaking records and so on, but actually what it is, if you attend one of his workshops, is that he shows us that we all have such easy, it just blows your mind how easy we can have access to this untapped potential. For example, the first time I did a workshop with him, he would have us do some push-ups, and I could do 15 push-ups and then my arms would want to fall off. And then we did his breathing practice, and he calls this a hyperoxygenation breathing practice. And after the practice, I was able to do 40 push-ups, holding my breath. So now that didn't take weeks or months of getting stronger. It just took the conscious breathing practice to be able to access this capacity. So this is what he does best. He travels around the world and comes and blows your mind about what you already have, how amazing your human capacity already is, that you just haven't given a chance to explore. And that at the end of the day, we all have such easy access to physical healing, health, happiness, strength. These things don't have to be so elusive. And he does a phenomenal job using both the ancients, esoteric terminology from the yogic traditions, but also the modern Western medical science. He's been involved with a lot of medical research around, what is really the human physiology. And he has proven beyond any doubt that a human being who has very little training can study his method for just a few days and prove in a medical setting that they can directly influence the autonomic nervous system and the immune system to do powerful things. That these things that are so-called involuntary bodily processes, they're not involuntary at all. It's just we haven't learned the very simple tools and techniques to start to be able to influence and change and control these aspects of our physiology. It's like we got this Ferrari that we never learned how to drive. So it's all the time driving in first gear, and we put the wrong fuel in it, and we step on the gas and the brake at the same time. And here's actually all of these teachers come along and illuminate for us. Wow,
driving
actually,
lessons.
This is really you've been making it so hard on yourself. Make it easy. You can really have a lot of fun with this ride if you just remove some of these blocks and make it simple and make it fun and make it enjoyable. And who else? Peter Straubinger.
It's documented.
Yep. So I think it was another one of these Googling around. I found his exciting documentary back in 2011, and it was not being shown in the United States. And I kept contacting the United States agents who had bought the rights to his film. And in the end, they said, it's very strange. We're having a bit of trouble airing this film in local indie theaters. So we don't know when it's going to be released. And so every month I would contact them again, and until finally I asked if I could release it in the United States. So I just rented out an independent theater in San Francisco, and I put the word out into the community, and we got, I think, a couple hundred people together, and I aired the film.
What's the film called?
It's called In the Beginning There Was Light. It's a documentary that Peter spent about 10 years of his life researching, and another 5 years of his life just putting it together into a film. So it's really a labor of
masterpiece
love that he put into it. And actually, it's funny, throughout this whole journey of me trying to screen the film and release it in the United States, I never made contact with Peter. But then Peter found out that finally somebody was interested in his film. His film was a huge blockbuster in Austria. It was more popular than all of the Hollywood films when it released. It sold out tickets, and on TV, when it airs on TV, it beats out in ratings in all the big movies. And for some reason, in the United States, it wasn't received in that way. I'm not sure totally why. Maybe part of it is that the U.S. audience is a little bit slower in exploring this topic. But at the end of the day, I released it, and it was a profound, life-changing experience for a lot of the people that came to the film. We had a Q&A at the end with Akai and Camilla, and you can see all the light bulbs going off through people's heads and the minds being blown, and a lot of people just came out of the movie feeling encouraged and empowered. That, yeah, I'm not interested in breatharianism, but the point of the movie is that this materialistic world that we think that we live in is not what it seems, and that if it's possible, even for one or two people on this planet, to live for prolonged periods of time without needing physical food, then we really need to examine what is energy, and what is nourishment, and what is fueling and breathing life into this physical dimension that we're experiencing.
I look forward to checking that film out for sure.
Yeah, so as a result of that, a lot of the people that have seen it maybe weren't interested in the breatharian part, but it awakened this understanding that, wow, I can heal myself. You know, that there's so much more to life than meets
Mind
the
blown.
eye. Yeah.
Speaking of mind blown, could you tell us a bit about Max Christensen, another one of our amazing speakers?
Yeah. So Max Christensen is a teacher that I only discovered very recently through a friend of mine. He spoke and said, you know, you might be interested in my teacher Max. I went to Max's website and I read his bio, and I just saw the light emanating from his headshot portrait. And I just thought, wow, this is maybe the most interesting man I've ever come across.
The true most interesting man alive.
Well, every one of our speakers are just the most fascinating people. These are really the most fascinating
Pranic superheroes.
human beings that I have come across in my entire life journey of exploring consciousness and just being a truth seeker. But Max kind of embodies really this capacity to take many different ancient traditions and applying into modern life. I understand that his story is that when he was a child, he had some major illnesses, and starting at age 6, his parents found a Qigong master for him to study with to try to heal himself, because I don't
6
know.
years old he started his
That's
studies?
6 years old. Yeah, because as I understand, I don't know the full details of his illness, but whatever it was not something that Western medicine could do a lot for him. So by studying Qigong practice, he started exploring this dimension of life at a very, very young age. And his Qigong teacher taught him different practices and martial arts, but also the Qigong teacher's wife is from the Mongolian, I forget the name, of Mongolian shamanic tradition. And so at a very young age, I think at age 9, he started exploring the shamanic
That's a head
tradition.
start.
I don't actually know how old Max is today. He could be 100 or 200, but
He looks 30.
He looks like he could be anywhere from 30 to 50, but I don't actually know how old he is. And he shares, when I spoke with him, he shares that all of his teachers that he's studied from different traditions, they're, some of them, the Chinese masters are like Chinese national treasures. They're actually documented to be 200 years old, or 120 years old, things like that, but they look like they're 40 or 50. So for all I know, Max could be 100 years old but looks 40 or so. He studied deeply and profoundly in many of the world's major traditions, mainly the Chinese Taoist traditions, but he's also studied the Hawaiian shamanic traditions, the Mongolian, that's right, it's called the Blue Wolf tradition.
Light bulb.
Yep, and Native American shamanic traditions. He was a Tibetan, he lived in a Tibetan monastery for a while and practiced the Tibetan alchemical practices. And as I understand, he's also mastered some esoteric practices of the Egyptian tradition. So there are more to it, but the list is so long that it's
He
really...
could definitely be 100 with that experience.
Yeah, and you know, with each of these traditions, he's not just dabbled in it, he's really delved into deep, deep study. And so with so many tools at his disposal, he actually went on retreat, I think, for a couple of years, where he just meditated and wanted to synthesize the real gems from each of these traditions. And the result of it is a new practice, a new body of practices that he calls the Kunlun practice, which he explains as really the root that is underlying all of these major esoteric, spiritual awakening, you know, alchemical practices from all of these world's tradition. What is the essence that underlies all of them? He synthesized it together after he went away for prolonged retreat to create a new body of work that makes it a lot more accessible to the modern person and makes it a lot more simple for many of us to practice. And he's even had students that have had the experience of, they call it in the Tibetan tradition, the returnable rainbow body. And have you guys heard of this? The returnable rainbow body is where, you know, I don't have this capacity, so I'm just speaking from book knowledge, you know, that some beings through certain practices experience a state in which they can consciously dematerialize and rematerialize. And when I speak to Max about this, he's very humble that you know, these are just side effects of the practice that eventually happen. And I can relate to that because the non-eating state, I experienced that as a natural side effect. And I used to think that was nuts, you know, but it was just so natural. And I think that if I start to think really hard about it, then it just, you lose that state. But if you just love your practice and enjoy being in that state, just practicing for the sake of the enjoyment of the practice, eventually strange things happen. You know,
Strange and wonderful things.
I've had many of these strange things happen of just spontaneously bursting into trillions of pieces of love and light and just being profoundly blissful, and you don't plan that, right? It just happens to you if you just love your practices. And the same with the non-eating state. So I can believe that it's possible that some beings, through their regular practice, without any expectation, eventually more strange things can happen. And so Max is just a very effective teacher of guiding beings into a really no-nonsense, practical set of tools that for our awakening and for our achievement of some of these really beautiful states of being.